Okay, so today we're going to be making this little city generator. As you can see, it's a little city, but we can also extrude it, and it just keeps on building the city there. And yes, that's pretty convenient. And dynamically generate stuff. And we can also have this little random effector here, which will we can change the seed of, and I'll just generate a different city there. So that's today's project. Let's get into it.
Need rigs? Ace 5 Studios has rigs. So let's dive right into this. Let's make a plane to get our first street layout. We'll start with the plane because it's easy and we'll make it one segment by one segment. We don't need more segments here. And let's put it into a fracture. So Mograph, and holding the Alt key, voronoi fracture. The Alt didn't work, so just put it in there. Put it in there. There we go. Now, if we get this voronoi fracture and we offset our fragments a bit, you'll see it looks a bit like a street system, which is exactly what we're trying to build. So what we want is we actually want to make these little streets, but we also want little blocks, because we don't want the buildings completely filling this up. We want them to be a little outline of this. So what we can do is let's copy this guy. There you go, control drag, and then make these guys a bit smaller, like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to lower this whole fracture a little bit. Actually, just the plane. We're going to do the whole fracture, just the plane. So they're a bit lower. And then we're going to select this guy, and we're going to add a thicken modifier, holding the Alt key. And now, as you can see, when we raise it up, there you go. This is what we want. So we want like basically little, so it looks like little pavements, but we can do pavements later. Basically here and now we want to subtract this. Now, depending on what cinema version you have, you might want the legacy bool or the new bool. So I'm going to type in legacy bool because the new bool does a lot of cool stuff, but it doesn't work in this situation. So we're just going to use the legacy one and put both these guys in there. And there you go, and it works. It's just set A subtract B. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking for these streets. Now, the thing is, we want this to be a dynamic setup, right? Because we want to be able to select a plane and then, if it's editable, and then extrude another section, and it should work, but it doesn't right now. So what we want to do is we want to get this plane, let's drag it out of the bool for the moment. And let's make an instance of it. Let's press 5C. Oops, sorry, shortcut. Yeah, I just Shift C instance. I have it mapped to 5C, very useful shortcut. And now we have instance of a plane and drag it into our voronoi fracture. And then control drag this guy into here and delete this plane. Now initially you will see that they're kind of overlapping because we need this plane to be slightly lower, right? Is that working? No, it's not. Why is it not working? The whole voronoi fraction need to go down? Nope. Because we were... because this thing should be invisible. There you go. We're all good. We just have to hide this plane. So let's put it into a little null and call this main plane. And now I'll click on these two dots. There you go. So now we have this wonderful thing. And now when we get this plane, actually let's not hide it. Let's add a display tag. So go Shift C, display tag, and add this display tag here. And I have it set by default to be on wireframe, but basically what you want to do is set lines, wireframe, and then we'll actually be able to see just the outline of it. And we can then go into edge mode and we can extrude it. And as you can see, they both extrude, but it does get kind of weird because this isn't really, because right now the fracturing is happening not how we want. So the next thing we want to do is we want to control the fracture. So let's disable our boolean thing for a while and let's hide our thicken. We want a more stable way to control this fracture. So in voronoi fracture, you will see there's this thing called sources. And right now it's just a point generator, which just generates randomly on the surface of whatever it's underneath. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a matrix object. So in here we have matrix object, and way less, I think maybe 10 and 10 will be enough. Let's switch this from mode to endpoint, because then we can keep a persistent, make sure you're in object mode, and we can keep a persistent endpoint. And what we're going to do is that we're going to get our voronoi fracture, and we're going to delete this point generator, and we're going to put our matrix in here. Now initially you'll see that it makes it very kind of regular, which isn't really what we want. I mean, this is a city, but that's not what we're going for. So let's first drag it out so that it takes up more of space outside of our environment. And then let's get a random effector. So random. And now you can see we have that effect back, the one we had before. But the advantage now is when we get this plane, and if we extrude one of the edges, see, it just continues. It doesn't go all wonky, and you can change the shape and it'll still remain some persistence. It won't constantly be flashing and regenerating because the source of these points is the same. And now what we have to do is we have to get our thicken generator, which right now isn't matching at all because it's not using the same source of fracturing. So we select this fracture and we delete this point generator and we drag our matrix in here again. So now we have one matrix, which we can adjust. Like we can change the random value here, change the seed, or we can change the amount of these clones, so we can have less of them or more of them. And this lets us create it, and they will work together. And now when we bull it out, you'll see that if we grab our main plane, let's call this again our main terrain plane. If we select the edges and control drag them, you can see we can just drag it out. Obviously, if you drag it out too far, you run out of these matrix objects. So you might want to increase the size of your matrix thing, but yeah, this is the general idea. So let's go undo this, just back to square for now. That's how we're building it. Okay, so let's hide our matrix. Let's group these guys, LG, into matrix source distribution. Yeah, it's not how you spell distribution, is it? You know what, we're going to just go dist. So next step is we want some buildings on these paths, right? And don't forget also this is dynamic, so if we want we can get our voronoi fracture here and we can make it smaller or bigger depending on how much space we want for the buildings. And we can also control the size of the roads, so we can have bigger and smaller spaces. So it's all dynamic, which is one of the cool things about this. So let's make a building. We'll get a cube. It's a bit too big, but let's make it editable. Go into point mode, select our bottom points and move them up to 0 so that we're working from a base here. Let's extrude this guy a couple of times, and there you go. Let's get this edge. Actually, let's just get those points and move them down, and maybe get these 3 here and just extrude them in. And we have our first kind of building. Building 1. And let's maybe scale it down a bit. Now, we want to clone these buildings around these surfaces. But the thing is, right now this is one single polygon, this purple thing. So we want to break this surface into smaller little polygons. So we get this, call this row blocks based, city blocks base. And let's create an instance of this. There you go. And we're going to try and fracture it again. So we're going to go and put it into a Mograph fracture again, voronoi fracture. And we're going to hide this first one. And look at that. It works almost off the bat. But right now this isn't quite fracturing the way I want, because we want like individual little blocks. So that we're going to have a house on each one. And right now it's not quite doing that. We could try using the same source. So we could obviously just create more points. But again, remember, if we extrude stuff, it'll start messing with things. Like if we start extruding this main terrain. See, See how it's all flashing? So not good. So we're going to go back to using a matrix source. And we can try using the matrix source that we already had. So yeah, it doesn't seem to do it at all because I guess it's not. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to use polygons of the actual city block base. So we're going to take out our, where is it? This is another thing. And we want just, yeah, we want just the blocks without deleting them. Yeah, so we're going to go and press, we're not going to use this specific because we want to use just geometry. So we're going to press again, we're going to make it into a instance. And this will be city blocks geo. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this into a connect object because that'll make it into just regular geometry. So somewhere in here is a connect object. See, now you can see it went gray. And let's call this connect city blocks geo. And the voronoi fracture, we're going to use that as a source. There we go. See now how they're coming out from the center because it's using every polygon. Well, it's using vertices right now. But I think if we use polygon centers, edge center works pretty well too. Maybe not quite enough of them. No, I think I like using polygon center. Seems pretty decent. And let's hide our connect geo blocks. And now theoretically when we drag out our main, they're flashing, but they're not, yeah, they're just changing color. So they're keeping the stability of the actual location of each block, which is good. Let me just have a look in here again. Let me try this. Maybe the vertices, no, because we have too much, we need more blocks. Edge centers, polygon centers, surface. So we can control the amount of points. Yeah, that's better. And if we get our main terrain again and control drag it, oh, the building's shifting around. That's not good. Oh, maybe it's okay. I think this using surface is good because we can control how many cracks we want, and it remains kind of stable. So it's not. I mean, it's close enough to not mess up entire art direction by just shifting a point around. So for now, so this is going to be city building locator. There we go. And now we're going to clone these buildings. Let's put them in a cloner. And we're going to drag this all the way to the bottom because order of operations is important. You want the things affecting the things below them. You don't want circles. So if you have the cloners, which are going to be on the fracture, you want them to be below the city building locator, the city building fracture. So let's clone them, where's it, object, and let's drag our sitting building locator in there. That's a lot of buildings and also totally wrong rotation. So let's go transform and go -90. And why is there so many of them? Are we cloning onto surface? No, I want to click on polygon center. There we go. And maybe we want these buildings to be slightly smaller. Oops. Object mode. There you go. And look at that. We basically have our little city blocks all set up now. And we might want to get our, where is it? This guy, and let's, oh, let's make them some, we have some slight, there you go. That's what I was trying to do. Yep, so just increase these until they seem like they're the right size for where you want the buildings to be. And you might want to increase the number of these guys. You can have smaller blocks. Maybe the roads are too big there now. So where's our, this is going to be our road width, I guess. Yeah. Oops, too small. There you go. And obviously we can use random effectors in the buildings and stuff. And we can use this random to change the seed. You might want to, scrub because clearly there is a priority issue for all these things to connect, but there we have it. We have the base of our system. Okay, so while we're working this, let's actually reduce the amount of these points, because I feel like we need, otherwise we just have too much stuff on them. Now, and maybe also want to reduce the amount of, let's make the buildings bigger, let's scale up our building, and let's make less of them. So our city building locator, let's go to source, and let's reduce these guys. I think that feels about right. You'll see some of them are intersecting. Actually, let's get a random thing. Let's also change our, that feels about right. Maybe sometimes you want to scroll this thing if it's not updating. And now what I want to do is we want to use the push apart effector to, so it's like a cloner, and let's go to here and push apart. There you go. And that'll prevent intersections, but that's a bit too big. So let's make them to like 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters. It seems about right, but also we might want to, instead of push apart, maybe we just want to hide. And we can, there you go, decide. Now, let's make the roads a bit wider. So let's go voronoi fracture, object, and let's, not too much, there you go. And inner ones as well. I think this will be good for our demonstration purposes. Otherwise you don't want to work something too dense while figuring out the system, how it works. So we got the push apart effector. Now, the next thing we want to do is let's add some color. Also, the buildings we can, obviously inside the cloner, you can, let's turn off the cloner for a second. Let's control drag this building, so make a copy of it. And let's bring this roof down. We should move this in object mode. Let's move this guy out so we have a second building here. And let's make these points. So that's something like this. And then we can control drag this guy. And we can make it smaller with the I key, or just scale it down and then move it up. Little pyramid building thing. And we can, there you go, looks about right. And maybe let's go phone thing here. Let's reduce it. Now honestly, this is just temporary. You can load up any buildings you want. You can find something content browser or on some websites. But we're just gonna have this, I'm gonna turn it on. And now as you can see, we have a bunch of different buildings here. Now, what we're gonna do next though, is we need to orient all these buildings so that they look at the road, right? For that, we'll need a road first, because we'll need something for them to aim at. So let's grab our voronoi fracture, I think this guy. And no, and let's copy and paste him over here. And let's invert him. Now see, it fills in like a road, right? And let's call this road fracture. And let's make a material, double click, make it nice and dark because it's going to be our road, and maybe go to reflection and turn that all the way down and apply this to our road fracture. And the road fracture still has colors, so we might want to turn off colorize fragments. There we go, so we can see that it's a road. And then copy this one more time, and let's call this road stripe fracture. And let's go, where is it? Object, and let's offset it all the way down here. Like this. And let's control click this one and make it brighter and yellow. And apply it to our road stripe. And now we have this road stripe going along the bottom. And what we want to do is we want to make it also thicker. So let's add our thickness. Thicken. There we go. That's a bit too much. Maybe just thicken it by 1 centimeter. Okay, so we have our little roads here. And remember this, while you're working on this also, don't forget to check, get your main terrain. Now let's extrude it. Still works, creates, very convenient. And also you can get the points and we can make it a little hill if we want. Beautiful, beautiful, still working. So what we're gonna do is we wanna aim all of these clones, all these buildings, towards this central line, towards this yellow line. So they're always pointing towards the closest line, so they're always facing towards the road, because right now they're kind of all randomly facing. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to use let's close this, we're going to want to use a target. So let's select our first building cloner buildings, and let's go target. Now, initially when you make target, it's just targets the target object, which is not what we want. What we want here is we wanted to, not object target, but we wanted to field direction. That's what we want. We want to create a field which will control the directions. And then in fields, we will drag our thicken of the yellow road stripes. So we'll drag this into here. And then we will change it to, already kind of getting there, but I know we want to change it to surface. There you go, you see now they're all lining up correctly. Oh, very neat, right? And we want to also turn off no remap here. No, that doesn't affect it. Yeah, I think that pretty much gets them. Look, they're all lined up facing the road. Yeah, there we go, easy. For some reason when I was testing it, it seemed harder. But there you go. Almost perfection. And yeah, now so again, let's check if it still works if we get our main terrain and we extrude it. And there you go, that's still all facing the roads. Beautiful. Magic. Sometimes, but yeah, it's important in the target effector that you don't use the object, you use the field direction, because then you can create fields and you can get the clones to look at. And we use this geometry of this road stripe to create the fields around it. So yeah, very neat. Okay, so let's tweak this a little bit. So here, as you can see, it feels like there's some bits of the street are kind of empty. So let's grab our, where's our city building locator, and let's increase the number of these guys. There you go, that looks about right. And for our next trick, let's put some plants into these sections in between. So let's grab our, this is our thicken, this is the one that's the little cutouts. So let's grab this and go Shift-C instance. And this will be called our grass. And let's drag it down here somewhere. And let's also put in, let's try it without the connect object. Let's see how it goes. Let's make a cloner, call it cloner trees. Let's open our asset browser and type in cocoa nut tree, cocoa nut tree. Which one did I think? No, wait. Tree, there, no nut. It's misspelled. That's the one that I like. So let's tell this guy. It's red shift because it has a little gray background instead of the white ones. So we have this palm, which is way too big. You can use any tree you want from anywhere, but I'm just using this one. Just make it editable. Scale it down. There you go. We have our little trees. So let's drag this into our cloner tree, and let's switch the tree to mode object and drag in our grass instance. Now see, that doesn't work. You don't get the trees on the surfaces there. So what we should do is put this guy into a connect object and make sure your weld is turned off just in case that might mess things up, and clone a tree and put connect in here. There we go, and it works. And make sure it's set to surface, yep, and then transform and -90 to make a tree stand up. Perfect. And maybe we want make the trees a bit smaller, maybe make it a bit more trees. There we go. And now look at that. Look, we have trees, we have buildings, and again, this is all editable. Whee! Aha. Pretty neat, right? So that's where we're going with this. And again, this isn't like a hero shot. This is more like, you probably have a main street, and this is more like for background stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the idea. The buildings as well. Let's go for bonus. Let's go and make the final shot of what I kind of want this to look like. So let's go here. Let's also see what buildings we have. You can get buildings anywhere, but the asset browser does have some nice buildings. Some of them are not, like these are more like hero buildings, I guess. So you might want to, like this guy, and what else do we have? Maybe this building. This building. Okay, let's close this up. See what we have. These are all very big, clearly. Wow, that thing's massive. Let's scale it down. Make them approximately the same size. That should work. And let's scale these guys all the way down, so they're appropriately sized for our city. And let's drag these into our cloner buildings. There you go. How nice is that? Nice is that? Now it's a much more dynamic little looking city. And we can also, let's get some randomness here. Let's get our random effector, and random buildings. Now, right now the random effector is moving them around. We don't want them to move around. So parameter, turn off position. What we do want is scale, and just in the Y. There you go. Now we have a variety of, all the buildings are not quite the same size. And we might also, we could add like, we could select our cloner buildings, and let's just add a plane effector. Turn off our position. Let's go scale, and let's just make the scale like tall like this. And what we can do now is we can fields, and we can go spherical field. And now we have this spherical field moving around, which affects where we have like the downtown area with the taller buildings. Nifty, right? Should probably turn off the color thing though. No remap. There we go. And again, we can extrude this part out if we want. Just move it out. And let's go. So I think we should be fully good in Redshift right now. Let's add a sun and sky rig, I guess. And let's see how sun here goes. Let's go open our, we can just do start IPR. Wrong render, old render I guess is still. I feel like the IPR is slower than that. Feels very bright. Oh, because probably our buildings have no materials on them. Yeah, now these old ones, let's delete these. Let's go. Let's just make a new one and put this on the buildings. And there we go. See, it's much. I don't like the way our sky has a background for the ground color. Like this. Pretty neat. And we have our little city generator here. That quickly. We obviously can control the amount of, we also seem to be seeing some stuff that we shouldn't be seeing. I guess this is us seeing the grass. Yes, this should be just green, I guess. Let's get out, where's our yellow? Let's copy this one. And let's make it green. Maybe a bit darker. and apply this to the grass. No, grass. Why are we seeing all these colors? Is it this guy? Yep, it was that guy. Oh, that's the Office IPR thing. Yeah, so we have the grass, and actually we don't want to turn off the city block generator. We just wanted to turn off its colors. Yeah, because we might want to also apply a darker gray to it. There you go. And now in Redshift, where's our render view? There you go. Cityscapes. We can also obviously add some hero buildings as we want, stack them around. And what also I would say is that sometimes if you do need to make hand edits, you can always just grab this cloner and just make it editable. And then you have each building individually, which you can move or delete or scale or whatever you want. So if you want, you can line them up where you want. If you have a scene where you can actually see them, and then you can just do it by hand. But obviously I would save before doing that. And I believe that's pretty much it for this. Oh, maybe also just, I remember in one of my Twitter posts we had that makes everything very wonky. That is interesting. I would say almost stylistic. Oh, there you go. So you have that technique if you need it. I think maybe what this would need is if you want to keep the buildings straight up, you might want to have them. Maybe that's another tutorial. But anyway, yeah, so basically we have a little city generator, especially for backgrounds, and you can go in and custom edit it once you have something that you like. And remember, if you need any more characters, we have a bunch of stuff on ace5studios.com. All these characters are animation ready, rigged, have materials, are fully customizable, and you can use them in your own commercial projects. We also have more stuff here, like some free rigs you can try out. We have character building kits. We have packs of simpler characters for infographics and infomercials and whatever it is you're making as kids. There's also some animals there, so go check it out. You won't be sorry.